Yesterday, I gave you a breakdown of what's really going on with the collapsing of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank of New York, that it was a controlled demolition in order to take them down. Now, these specific banks could have been saved, but the powers that be absolutely chose not to. This wasn't just a sporadic run on a bank that's turned into bailouts. I know that's the going narrative at the moment, but that's not what happened. More information is coming out that should raise some serious eyebrows. Now, before we get into the new information, something that's relevant that I didn't mention yesterday is that the first bank to actually collapse was a smaller bank called Silvergate. Now, it's a smaller bank in the world of banking, but it was the biggest in the world of crypto. That bank went under on Wednesday. Now, the reason cited was lack of liquidity due to a bank run as a result of the FTX scandal. But then Friday, Silicon Valley Bank went under, which, though it wasn't specifically a crypto bank, it did hold lots of crypto startups and VCs as customers. And then suddenly Sunday, completing the crypto bank trifecta, Signature Bank of New York, known in the crypto world as the second largest crypto bank after Silvergate, went under. So now, where do you go if you have crypto? Let's go through some of the evidence that has come out to support this, because I know in the mainstream, the narrative right now is all about, oh, this was just a bank run and people got scared and now there's a bunch of bailouts and they're going to be bailing out crypto bros. You're hearing a lot of that, or bailing out those tech bros. But this was a targeted assassination of these crypto banks. And again, the agenda is to wipe out crypto. Why? Because if you control the money, you control the people. And that is the point. They want to roll out their own central bank digital currency. They don't want you to have a different one. They want theirs. They want you to have theirs. And they want you to have your money in their banks so they can control you. That is the ultimate agenda. I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but at this point, if I could just count how many of these conspiracy theories have come out to be true, I think we'd be winning some Olympic gold medals at this point. So let's go over some of the evidence. So first of all, came across this on Twitter yesterday when all of this scandal was coming out. Here is this tweet. This guy was saying, this is Warren Togami, and he says, this is Operation Choke Point 2.0. Today I heard this from the management of a small U.S. bank. Today, basically every bank regulator is calling every bank and asking for their liquidity report, asking whether they plan to apply for the Fed program, and asking whether they have any exposure to crypto. They're definitely trying to ensure that smaller banks don't touch this area. So that is evidence number one. Then we roll into some of the news that was coming out yesterday. Bad news for crypto. Here's some of the headlines. Silvergate, SVB bank failures create a huge problem for crypto. Here's another one from Forbes. Silvergate and Signature demise may torpedo a key crypto growth driver. Okay, news headlines aren't exactly evidence, but you see where this narrative is going. So now we start to find out today, because now it's coming out and people can't keep their mouths shut for too long, because ultimately this is going to come out. Believe me, although I know right now the Fed announced that the VP of the supervisory of the Fed or whatever says that they're going to be doing an investigation on the supervising of SVB. So basically the Fed is going to be investigating the oversight of the bank that the Fed was supposed to be overseeing. That's what's going on right now. They're going to look into it. Don't you worry. They're going to get to the bottom of what happened to that bank. What a joke. They're going to investigate themselves before independent investigators can go in there and investigate. Before we get the real truth, they're going to come out with the narrative of what that truth is. So we find out today, because ultimately this will come out, even on Fox Business, we find out that actually Silicon Valley Bank didn't need to go under. There was a buyer for Silicon Valley Bank that would have taken over the clients. It would have just cleaned everything up, dealt with everything, would have been done. Watch this from Fox Business today.
Andy Quarles said he would have been happier if the private sector, somebody bought the thing right out. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I think Randy's right, and you're right. And, I have heard it from, people I have a great deal of faith in that were very close to the situation, that there were buyers who are willing to step in and buy the bank, and that the radicals at the FDIC basically weren't going to allow that to happen. I even heard, again, someone told me this directly that was close to the situation, that the Biden administration had a whitelist of companies that were allowed to buy the failed bank and companies that weren't. And so basically you could imagine they're so concerned about some bank getting a little bit bigger that they've decided to put all these taxpayer monies at risk. And I think it's something we've seen from the Biden administration really from the beginning, is that they've got this radical left agenda, and it doesn't ever exude any even common sense. And so here we are in the middle of a potential banking crisis. We've got people willing to step up and buy the company, and the radical left-wingers at the FDIC won't let them do it. And so I think that that's going to go down. It's something that we should have hearings about, and we should find out exactly what was going on. But I've heard it from people very close to the situation who I trust. And you saw Senator Haggerty was tweeting about it too. And so it's a scandal, frankly. And the problem with bailouts, right, is that suppose that you're a bank right now and you're not really doing so good. You took some bad bets. The bets are down. Well, if your guys are going to be bailed out, if your depositors are going to be bailed out no matter what you do, then you should swing for the fences, right? You should take the biggest risks that you can to try to, double down and get yourself out of trouble. And so what usually happens when regulators come in and try to, outsmart the market and provide backstops is that risk goes up, and eventually something really horrible happens. And I hope that it's not this time, or it's way off in the future, but I think that's the risk of where we are, is that there's a moral hazard risk that people are going to, take bigger risks to dig themselves out. And then when they lose that money, there's going to be even more and more bailouts that have to be done.
I'm very concerned.
So there you go. Right there. The SVB had a buyer, but they stopped it. Why? We don't really know. They just didn't like that company. They had a short list of companies that were allowed to buy that bank and others that were not. Would love to see that short list. Who was allowed to buy it? Was it only the big four banks? JP Morgan Chase? Was it just Citibank? Basically the ones that own 80% of the shares of the Federal Reserve in New York. Is that who was allowed to buy it? Only them? Not these other banks that, well, they would just start back up and tech would have another place and crypto would have another place and that would be okay. No, they want to kill crypto. That is the point. So Barney Frank, now I know he's become like this controversial figure in all of this because he sat on the board of Signature Bank of New York. And so people are saying that it was Barney Frank who, even though he was part of the Dodd-Frank Act to help regulate banks, he then called for a rule change to deregulate banks. And if he wouldn't have done that, if Barney Frank from Dodd-Frank wouldn't have done that, then the bank wouldn't have collapsed. Well, Barney Frank has a different viewpoint of this. And he actually calls this out and says in this AP article, look at this, Signature Bank seized to send banks a message, Barney Frank says. In it, he says a regulatory takeover, this is the article itself, a regulatory takeover of a New York-based bank was intended to send a message to U.S. banks to stay away from the cryptocurrency business, a former member of Congress who was on the bank's board said. Former U.S. Rep. Barney Frank said Monday that he believes the state officials behind the action were trying to make an example of Signature Bank in a takeover that he said was the wrong move. Despite a wave of withdrawals, the bank situation was under control before regulators swooped in. He said, quote, "This was just a way to tell people we don't want you dealing with crypto," Frank said in an interview. Now, you don't believe Barney Frank, maybe because you're thinking, well, but he was the guy that deregulated. It was all his fault. We'll take a look at this. This right here is, there we are. This is the closure of Signature Bank seems unwarranted. Here's this tweet by Arthur OX. The closure of Signature Bank seems unwarranted as their ATM unrealized losses aren't that big compared to its overall asset base. Some other factors likely at play here, and they're calling this Operation Choke Point 2.0, is these are the unrealized losses. And you could see there, Silicon Valley Bank is the one that's got the big bar on the left. And you keep going across, and you do see Silvergate. Now, Signature Bank of New York which is just way down the line. It was very, very little. They didn't have these unrealized losses. And that is just the reality of it. Silvergate was back to being actually by Sunday, it was fine. And then the regulators swooped in on Sunday. So they just took advantage of this short window of Signature Bank of New York having a slight run. And then they were okay. They'd sorted it out. And the regulators came in and seized the bank anyway. So why would they do that? Why would they prevent the buyer from buying SVB? Why would they shut down Signature Bank of New York when it was fine before they showed up? It's like, hey, we don't need the fire department anymore. We actually put out the fire. It was just a little stove fire. Sorry about that. Egg carton caught on fire. Whoopsie. Put it out. Don't worry. You don't need to come in and put water all over my house, use fire extinguishers everywhere, and just ruin everything, which is essentially what just happened to them. Now, here's something else that also supports that all of this is true. There's this bank, a bank called Custodia Bank. You've never heard of it, probably, because it is not, the Fed won't allow it to become a member bank. It's a bank that actually would be a 100% reserve bank rather than fractional banking. So rather than when you put your money into a bank account, the bank then goes and lends out your money or invests part of your money. You know, they're supposed to keep 10% in the bank, and then they go and they lend out and invest the rest of your money. This bank was actually going to be 100% reserve banking. So it would have been the safest bank in America. On top of that, it was a bank for cryptocurrency. And you need a bank if you're in the world of crypto because you need an on-ramp and an off-ramp for crypto. You need to be able to buy your crypto using US dollars, right? You want to be able to do that. And you also want to be able to offload your crypto. You want to be able to sell or convert your crypto from crypto into US dollars. So you need a bank for that on-ramping and off-ramping. Now, Silvergate played a big role for FTX, FTX being the exchange. What happens is when you own crypto is you go to an exchange, and the exchange you could trade your coins with somebody else directly for other coins, or you can actually convert it into dollars or other currencies. The way you're able to do that is these exchanges like Coinbase, which also had just announced days ago, right before the seizure of Signature Bank, that it was moving its operations to Signature Bank, and that's where FTX was, or FTX was with Silvergate. So they said, we're going to move our operations there, and suddenly the bank is seized. Now, Coinbase uses a bank so that if you have crypto, want to convert it to any sort of fiat currency, they have these deals with banks that they then act as intermediaries, and they go to those banks and they get that money for you. They need those banks, but they need banks like Signature Bank of New York. They need banks like Silvergate. They need banks like maybe Silicon Valley Bank. And maybe when we get into the bottom of this, maybe there was a deal being done where Silicon Valley Bank was about to become a bank that would do more of these types of deals. Maybe we'll find that out, right? So there's this bank, Custodia, and look at this right here. So Custodia actually went to the Federal Reserve asking to become a member bank. On January 27th, it says right here, these are the notes from the Federal Reserve, their timeline of actions. Federal Reserve Board announces denial of application by Custodia Bank to become a member of the Federal Reserve System. Again, Custodia Bank being a bank that would be 100% reserve banking and heavily in the crypto world. It would act similar to Silvergate or act similar to Signature Bank of New York. Then, February 22nd of this year, Federal Reserve Board announces it has denied the request by Custodia Bank for reconsideration of the board's decision last month on its application to be supervised by the Federal Reserve. Custodia Bank said, can you reconsider? Federal Reserve said, nah, we're not going to reconsider. And then, shortly after, here we are, March 12th, says the action made by the Fed invoking systemic risk exception for Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. And on the 12th, again, establishment of new facility bank term funding program. So they are collapsing crypto banks, and they don't want anything to do with any new ones. And now Custodia is going after the Federal Reserve. They're seeking legal action to find out why they're being denied, why they're not able to become a member bank. Crypto banks want the regulation. They're looking for good, solid regulation in the crypto world. And rather than deliver that, rather than join in and actually help the crypto world, our government has every intent to collapse it. And they want to get rid of it. And they're doing that because, once again, they want to bring out their own central bank digital currency. Because if you control the money, you control the people. That is what is going on. So I'm sure we will have more updates to this unfolding saga as time goes on, and I will do my best to keep you updated on all of this. But this does look like targeted assassinations. This was not, oh no, banks went under again. This is like 2008. Oh no, what are we going to do? It's happening again. No, it isn't. They did this on purpose. They took advantage of situations. We could even go, there's even more to look into with this, with FTX collapsing. We could look more into that. We could look more into Peter Thiel and his role in all of this. He was the one who seemingly started the run on Silicon Valley Bank. And on top of that, interestingly, Peter Thiel was one that was touting crypto, saying everybody go buy crypto. Oh, crypto's great. We really need more crypto out there in the world. He's saying this at conventions in spring of 2022. Meanwhile, secretly offloading all of his crypto. He gives this speech saying, oh, love crypto, more crypto, we need all this, with failing to mention that a month prior, his fund had offloaded every ounce of his crypto that he had owned. Why was he doing that? Why was he giving out speeches, telling everybody to go get crypto while he offloaded his? Right before, by the way, FTX goes under. And then he offloads, by the way, everything out of Silicon Valley Bank right before a run on the bank, and the bank goes under. Odd. Things that we need to be questioning. And that's what this show is about. We are questioning all of these things that the mainstream media is unwilling to question. All right, guys. Well, I'm happy to announce that I eat all of my fruits and veggies. But I cheat. I still cheat. And the way I cheat is I use Field of Greens. This is just the easiest way to do it. I mean, I know we're all adults here, so we're supposed to be eating our fruits and vegetables. You tell the kids to do it, so you should be doing it for yourself. And it's hard. Let's face it. It's really difficult to do. So Field of Greens makes it easy. It's a powder of freeze-dried organic fruits and vegetables that you can mix into your ice water, or maybe you want to mix it into a juice. You could put it into broth. I like to drink it all various different ways. Sometimes I just sprinkle it into salad on top of my salad dressing. I really like it that way as well. That way I don't have to chop up all the vegetables and put it in the salad. It's so lazy, I know, but I still get all my fruits and vegetables, and that's how I have such glowing skin, right? But yes, fieldofgreens.com. You can get yourself some, try it out, make your life easy, and just eat all your fruits and vegetables in one scoop. Go there, use the promo code Kim, and you will get 15% off your first order. So that's fieldofgreens.com. Promo code Kim.